Nearly 50 years after his death, Eugene O'Neill's legacy in words continues to thrive on the stage. In recent years, critically praised revivals of The Iceman Cometh, Moon for the Misbegotten, and Huey have come to Broadway. In their new book, O'Neill, Life with Monte Cristo, Arthur and Barbara Gelb revisit their seminal 1962 biography of the playwright. Joining me now to discuss the life and legacy of O'Neill, co-authors Arthur Gelb, former managing editor of the New York Times, and author and lecturer Barbara Gelb. Also here, two actors who memorably brought O'Neill's words to the stage. Jason Robards, whose career has been defined by his many portrayals of O'Neill's classic characters, and Zoe Caldwell, who performed opposite Robards in a 1976 production of Long Day's Journey into Night. I am pleased to have everyone at this table join me for this conversation about O'Neill. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome. Now, here is the question that we begin with that you must have occurred to both of you. Why, as Stephen Spender said to you in 1994, no biographer ever does that when you said to him you were going to rewrite completely your biography of O'Neill. Why redo it?
Well, in this era of pop culture, where we've shrunk our heroes, O'Neill continues to stand tall, and we felt that we were getting on, and if we didn't take the new material that had become available since our first biography came out in 1962, we would lose all the work and all the thinking that we had put into this genius, into the probing of this genius. In his case, in the experiences, the facts of his life traveled through his creative imagination and soared to the level of art. That's true of most artistic geniuses, of course, but we were compelled to unravel those truths. The truths of his work reveal us as an audience to ourselves. We learned so much from his psychologically accurate portrayals. In fact, psychiatrists have told us that they read O'Neill's works, probing those truths, and it's just like having O'Neill on the couch. And there are many examples of this. One example is in the touch of the poet, where Cornelius' melody expresses this anger toward his daughter. Well, O'Neill at that point was very upset about his daughter Una, who married Charlie Chaplin. And Una was then just a young girl.
About the same age as Sarah Melody in The Touch of the Poet.
And Charlie Chaplin was the same age as O'Neill's father. He was furious at her for doing this. He berated her in several letters, bitter letters, and finally disowned her. Well, that anger emerges toward the daughter of Cornelius Melody in Touch of the Poet.
Yeah.
Actually, that's something we only realized with this rewriting.
That's what I was going to get to. What new revelations do we have here? What new insights do we have
it's not
30
just
years later?
O'Neill himself is a great genius, but the fact somebody was going to write a new book about O'Neill with all this new information. And we figured it might as well be us.
Has a lot of stuff come out since?
Enormous amount of stuff. Letters. He wrote thousands of letters. He was the most prodigious letter writer I think that there ever was. Because he was not very social and he didn't see people, but he kept in touch with the world through his correspondence, which is quite amazing. Yeah. And then there are diaries, and then there are manuscripts of the plays that were kept at Yale and were not available to scholars at the time.
Has your take on O'Neill changed?
To a degree, yes, it has. Partly because we got a lot older,
and therefore you understood more.
We understood
more insightful.
Yeah, we understood more about O'Neill's parents and O'Neill's father as a very much put-upon father. Whereas when we wrote the first book, we were more closer to O'Neill's age, and as a child, as a young man, and we sympathized more with him. That's one of the ways that our take has changed.
Does he speak to you as a playwright more than anyone else?
Yes, and I never really understood why when I first did The Iceman with Jose. I just did it because I'd seen the original in '46, and I remembered James Barton's face. I didn't remember the play too well. I remember some of it. It didn't go very well then. But I knew it was a great play when I did it. We only rehearsed 2 weeks, actually. Yeah, I did, because they had it was a big cast. It was off-Broadway deal. And it all of a sudden came to life for me, and it was like going down a road on a map of that I knew exactly where every turn, because I'd looked at it, and I never had looked at anything. He just spoke to me that way. He did not speak to me in a personal way, even with Long Day's Journey. I know I had an interview with Arthur 46 years ago for the time when I went to Iceman to Long Day's Journey. And
in the same year.
Huh?
In the same year. You went
Yeah, I did both of them 1 year, and 6 months apart. But the funny thing was that they said, well, you know, this must be parallel to your life. I said, no, it isn't. It's nothing to do with my life, nothing to do with it. Turned out it was, now I find it was exactly to do with my life. He revealed me to myself, as you said in the introduction to the book. I suddenly started to understand a lot of things, and I understood about drinking, about killing myself, and trying to in so many different ways. But not only about that, about all my relationships, about my father, my mother, who had disappeared out of my life when I was young, not in
But
drugs.
when did you come to this conclusion?
Well, I started to come to it after I'd done 4 or 5 of his plays, but this book, Life with Monte Cristo, it absolutely floored me. I suddenly thought, you know something, I spent years ago, I went to a psychiatrist and did all. This is better than anything. You could have paid
$40.
Yeah.
A lot better on.
This is unbelievable.
Wait till psychiatric
I tell you
profession.
how important it was to me.
And
sailing, everything.
Everything. Zoe, and you? I mean, what is it about O'Neill for you?
Well, I'm not as intensely involved in
I know,
O'Neill,
but you played.
But I realized I'd always thought of Mary as a wonderful, gentle morphine addict who was much put upon. And when I began to really, really dig deeply, because of them actually, because of the first book, O'Neill, I realized that she's a killer.
Killer.
Killer. She castrates those 3 men with her guilt, which it's too big a guilt for her to, not the morphine addiction, but the death of her little boy because Jamie had the measles and went into the room and kissed him and killed him when she wasn't there, when she wasn't at home. And the guilt being a convent-educated young woman, the guilt of it all came too much, and she offloaded it. First of all to Jamie, at quite a young age, and sent him from the house, and then offloaded a great deal with you because of sending that particular doctor, and then offloading her guilt to young Eugene O'Neill. Thus, and living in the house in the way that her father had always let her live, as though she was the center of the universe. Her father pampered her, and she felt like the center of the universe. When she went out into the real world, she realized she wasn't. But she created, and this is people do this, they create a world in which they can survive and feel good, no matter who else goes down. Not everybody. Not everybody.
Than we thought in those days. This book proves.
Oh yes.
Mary Tyrone was much stronger. Yeah.
Oh yes, she went on the road.
Yeah.
She went on that
One of the news documents that we came across at Yale University, at the library at Yale University, where O'Neill's papers are, was the early drafts of Long Day's Journey, and in one of those early drafts, O'Neill describes his mother as an alien demon, which shocked
turns into a
us.
bitter, mean
His
viper.
sainted mother, you
Yes,
said.
the sainted
And,
mother.
you know, he was so conflicted about his feelings about his mother.
Now, for dramatic purposes, he toned that down somewhat. But that is how he obviously.
But she used that morphine addiction. She wielded it like the sword of Damocles over each of their heads.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But it's interesting because the
You played that so
original.
beautiful when you did Mary, because
She was wonderful.
because I learned a great deal from your interpretation of that.
And if
You
that was
learned something. I mean,
from Zoe's performance. Yes, we keep
So
seeing these
no,
forgotten
I'm not. But I.
No, it's
what?
true.
Because
What did you learn?
It was so
We saw
different.
how manipulative Mary
Yeah,
was, and
yeah.
totally unlike the original creation of the role by Florence Edelbridge. I don't
Who played it as a very
want to
sweet
say
woman,
anything
a
against her,
sweet
but
woman,
Other than Mary,
Boy, but she had Freddie right there.
yeah,
She had him strapped
he
up.
was wonderful.
In real life.
that's true. In real life,
I was the only one that could speak to in this play to him. She refused to speak to him, and Jose appointed me as the messenger. I was in the play, but
Florence would not speak to her husband.
no, over a thing that happened in Paris when we were there. Anyway,
let me just ask this question before we leave Mary. How do you compare the way O'Neill wrote female characters versus male characters?
I think he wrote them with equal insight,
Did he wrote
them?
and equal
Yes.
psychological
Yeah.
understanding.
I think so. I think he does.
There was a lot of female in him in his character.
Which one, obviously? I want to ask.
well, Mary's a great part. Oh, yeah, other
For you,
parts?
for you, no, for you.
Oh, male parts.
Yeah, for you.
Oh, the male part, Hickey and the old man in Long Day's Journey, and Huey, I played Erie Smith in that, and Wilderness, I loved that because it was happy. That was the happy side of his life in her life. And A Moon for the Misbegotten. Look at the part that Colleen played in that, yeah. That was incredible. And Touch of the Poets was, I think, one of the greatest plays he ever wrote. But,
You do.
Oh, I love that
Well, I
play.
think Long Day's Journey is the greatest American play.
Yes, it is, really.
The greatest American play,
greatest
Long Day's
American
Yes.
play.
I don't know why I'm such a thing about The Touch of the
I
Poet
mean,
because
it's done over
that's
and
such
over
fun.
again.
Would
Not
you
only-
like, actually, before this, would you like Touch of the Poet better? You think it's a better play than Long Day's Journey?
Well, I don't know. It goes on a lot about history and everything, and Andrew Jackson. And
Well, you know, that was
all
part,
those times.
that was
I love
part
it.
of an 11-play series, Touch of the
Yeah.
Poet. But he destroyed all of the plays except for Touch of the Poet before he died, because he didn't want anyone to finish those plays for him. It was really very tragic, because in his last years, he managed to write his greatest plays. He was totally sober. He had been an alcoholic in his early years.
And he was very ill too.
But
with
he
a
was
nervous
sober,
disorder.
and he managed to. His mind was so clear, but he had this neurological disorder, and he said he had to finish these plays. So he set aside this 11-play cycle, which included The Touch of the Poet. But by the time he had finished Long Day's Journey and Moon for the Misbegotten, A Nice Man Cometh, he went back. He tried to go back to that cycle. And he was too ill. He could not do it. So he destroyed the plays. And his wife said it was like tearing up children, because they actually tore up the plays.
Let me come back to Long Day's Journey. No question in your mind that it's
No,
the
that's
best,
a great place.
the greatest American play.
You know, when we were, Barbara and I were there, Barbara and I were there on opening night on Broadway. And,
What year was it?
1956.
And Jason, of course, was playing
Right.
Jamie.
Jamie, and
older
when
brother.
the curtain went down in that play, remember, no one it had just been published, but the opening night audience had not read it. It was very
See,
obvious.
that's so amazing.
So they were seeing this for the first time. They were seeing this play for the
It's
first
hard
time.
to imagine reading it or seeing it
Well,
for the
the
first
cur- the
time.
cur- the
Something that much of work of
Well,
James.
so
go ahead.
the
So
audience,
it's-
the audience was wiped out. They were just emotionally exhausted. The play ended, and there was such silence in the audience. There were
Nobody
tears,
applauded.
but no
The
one
curtain came
applauded.
down. Everyone was
Because everyone was
paralyzed with
stunned,
emotion.
stunned, absolutely stunned.
Overwhelmed.
When about a minute later, the actors came back, and the applause. In those days, there were not standing ovations. It was now every
Every show has a
gets a standing
ovation.
ovation.
Yeah.
The
It was
audience
very rare in those
leaped out of their seats, And not only did that, but they started surging down the aisle to the stage to have some kind of contact with the
Yes, tell me about it. You remember that?
I do. Freddie March was leading the four of us in the bows. And so I don't let us get out of here. I don't like it.
The natives are restless.
Because nobody said it. He said, better go up. So we started to go up, and then they sent us back out again, and we went out. And they applauded and rose up. But the thing that got me, that everybody came running when you're standing, and so they're really right there when they come close, right there. They all ran to us.
They wanted to touch
I saw Tennessee standing there. Yeah.
You look just like him, did
Yeah, scared me.
Tennessee Williams.
Yeah. He's going crazy.
He said O'Neill gave birth to the American theater and died for it.
Yes,
he was
it's
a
true,
great
though.
admirer.
Yeah.
And died for it.
And died
Died for it. Yeah, he did.
Well, because he knew that in his last days he was neglected and he was getting bad reviews for things that
survived those days.
opened out of town. A Moon for the Misbegotten closed out of town, for example. And O'Neill felt that he was just forgotten.
The first version of the first production of Moon for the Misbegotten.
So he gave all the place to
and-
the Swedes.
Yeah.
Gave them all to the
Swedish, yeah.
In terms of the, so
Not to us.
is there room? Do you take O'Neill's words and say, I mean, I'm locked into this. I mean, there's no. I guess I'm wanting to. How much is it also clear because of the brilliance of his right where you take it, where you take the performance from O'Neill?
Oh, yes, you don't take it, you just do it.
That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
You said it better. Thank you,
You just
dear.
do it.
Yeah.
So would you agree that his plays are actor-proof, that his instructions to the actor are so flawless that they are...
The stage directions turned out, which we thought were, we erased all of them during the Iceman. So it's too much.
Really?
I said, those are terrible. Everybody, I said, these are terrible. Let's get them out. We took them out, and all of a sudden, about 10 days into rehearsal, we put them all back in again. We realized we couldn't get anywhere.
Producers now understand that
Yeah.
O'Neill did not waste a word. when
Not
he
a word.
instructed.
Including stage instruction.
Especially
Especially stage instruction. Yeah.
And he sometimes repeats a
Yeah.
phrase or a word again and again and again. Isn't there the great story about the fellow who came from the Theatre Guild, who said, Lawrence Land,
Our wilderness.
who said to him,
Yeah, there was
you
great,
tell it,
there
it's
was
a
great
great story.
pressure on O'Neill to make a cut in Our Wilderness when the show was out of town, because the producers, the Theatre Guild, said that the audience would not be able to catch their trains
The
back
commuters
to
would
the,
leave before
back to
the
the
end of
suburbs,
the play.
back to the suburbs. So
O'Neill couldn't care less about commuters.
that's right. And so he finally said, "Okay, I have that cut for you," and they were all very excited about the fact that O'Neill was willing to cut 10 minutes out of his play.
Yeah.
So he said, "Where's the cut?" He said, "Well, we're going to cut out an intermission."
Good for him. That's it. Not my work.
That's right.
Was the autobiographical character of his work new for the time? I mean, was he...
As a playwright,
Yeah.
yes. Novelists, of course,
course,
have been doing that
everyone
for years.
No, in our theater.
But he was a novelist of the theater.
Yeah.
That's what he was, a novelist of the
A
theater.
novelist, meaning what? Because of the autobiographical...
Because of
because
the thickness of the characters and the
depth of the
depth
character.
and the
And
comprehensiveness.
the truthfulness of the characters and the autobiographical aspects of the characters.
Yeah.
Well, you know, he said about people criticized him for being too autobiographical. Sometimes he said facts are facts, but the truth is outside of the facts. The artistic truth is outside of the facts.
I want you to, before we go any further, read. I ask you to do this for me, for the audience at home. We have selected what? So.
well, we've selected one scene in...
We have found out that
This is from Long
She-
Day's Journey.
this is the second act, and we've all now found out that the night before she had taken drugs again, so it seems.
The morphine.
Yes, and everybody's breaking up and leaving the house, leaving her there alone. That should
The
I...
men have to get out to
Yeah,
survive.
Yes.
But you see, she never lost her femininity, or her softness, or her sweetness,
Right.
which was always killer. You don't have to be like a bite to be
No, they all go crazy. She just holds it together.
She stays absolutely marvelous.
Well, that's
And here she says,
Yeah, she says.
have you, you haven't seen my glasses anywhere, have you, James?
No, Mary.
What's the matter with Jamie? Have you been nagging him again? You shouldn't treat him with such contempt all the time. He is not to blame. If he'd been brought up in a real home, I'm sure he would have been different. You're not much of a weather prophet, dear. See how hazy it's getting? I can hardly see the other shore.
Yes, I spoke too soon. We're in for another night of fog, I'm afraid.
Oh, well, I won't mind it tonight.
No, I don't imagine you will, Mary.
I don't see Jamie going down to the hedge. Where did he go?
Well, he's going with Edmund to the doctor's. He went up to change his clothes. I'd better do the same, or I'll be late for my appointment at the club.
Don't go yet, dear. I don't want to be alone. I mean, you have plenty of time. You know you can boast. You know you boast. You can dress in 1/10 of the time it takes the boys. There's something I wanted to say. What is it? I've forgotten. I'm glad Jamie is going uptown. You didn't give him any money, did you, dear? I hope.
I did not.
He'd only spend it on drink, and you know what a vile, poisonous tongue he has when he's drunk. Not that I would mind anything he said tonight, but he always manages to drive you into a rage, especially if you're drunk, too, which you will be.
I won't. I never get drunk.
Oh, I'm sure you'll hold it well. You always have. It's hard for a stranger to tell, but after 35 years of marriage...
I have never missed a performance in my life, and that's the proof. I did get drunk. Not you should blame me. No man has ever had a better reason.
Reason? What reason? You always drink too much when you go to the club, don't you? Particularly when you meet Mr. McGuire. He sees to that. Don't think I'm finding fault, dear. You must do as you please. I won't mind.
I know you won't. I've got to get dressed.
No, please. Wait a little while, dear. Just until one of the boys comes down. You'll all be leaving me so soon.
It's you who are leaving us, Mary.
I? That's a silly thing to say, James. How could I leave? There's nowhere I could go. Who would I go to see? I have no friends.
It's your own fault. There's surely one thing you can do this afternoon that'll be good for you, Mary. Take a drive in the automobile. Get away from the house. Get a little sun and fresh air. I bought the automobile for you. You know I don't like the damn things. I'd rather walk any day or take a trolley. I had it there waiting for you when you came back from the sanitarium. I hoped it would give you pleasure, distract your mind. You used to ride in it every day, but you've hardly used it at all lately. I paid a lot of money I couldn't afford. And as the chauffeur, I have to board and lodge and pay high wages to whether he drives you or not. Waste. Same old waste that'll land me in the poorhouse in my old age. What good did it do you? I might as well throw the money out the window.
Yes, it was a waste of money, James. You should have bought, and you shouldn't have bought a second-hand automobile. You were swindled again, as you always are, because you insist on second-hand bargains on everything.
It's one of the best makes. Everyone says it's better than any of the new ones.
It was another waste to hire Smythe, who was only a helper in the garage and had never been a chauffeur. Oh, I realize his wages are less than a real chauffeur's, but he more than makes up for that, I'm sure, by the graft he gets from the garage on the repair bills. Something is always wrong. Smythe sees to that, I'm afraid.
I don't believe it. He may not be a fancy millionaire's flunky, but he's honest. You're as bad as Jamie, suspecting everyone.
You mustn't be offended, dear. I wasn't offended when you gave me the automobile. I knew you didn't mean to humiliate me. I knew that that was the way you had to do everything. I was grateful and touched. I knew buying the car was a hard thing for you to do, and it proved how much you loved me in your way, especially when you couldn't really believe it would do me any good.
No, Mary. Mary. Dear Mary. For the love of God, for my sake, and the boy's sake, and your own, won't you stop now?
I? James, please. Stop what? What are you talking about? James, we've loved each other. We always will. Let's remember that. And not try to understand why we cannot understand or help things that cannot be helped. The things that life has done to us, we cannot excuse or explain.
You won't even try?
Try to go for a drive this afternoon. Try to go for a drive this afternoon, you mean? Well, I think we should stop now. You?
I could be here forever. I don't think that anything has ever graced this table so wonderful as that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Charlie, for having us.
It was beautiful.
Great, Charlie, to see you again.
It was great to see you.
Yeah.
And you honor this program by coming here to give performance and experience to what the Gelbs have done in this.
Oh, I'm so happy they did that.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Happy that
We
Zoe's
enjoyed
here.
it. We enjoyed your
Oh, man,
performance.
this is really magical for me. I thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.